Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a member showcase with Star Peterson. We're going to be chatting with Star in just a moment. I want to apologize because I missed I had this actually scheduled for earlier today, and then I had a calendar screw up. It was totally my bad. I just have a bunch of stuff like throughout the day that I had going in. I had a meeting that I thought I canceled and I didn't. And so I missed the one this morning, but here we are. Star, thank you being so much for your thank you for being flexible with meeting me again today. And I'm really looking forward to you answering some of these questions, to talk a little bit about your background, also your participation in on Friday's event, our Ideal
So excited.
21 conference. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And yeah, let me start out a little bit with, let's see, we've got a great group of people in. Let's see, Kim is here. Hey, Kim, Andrea, Lisa, Gina, Lane, Elizabeth, Michelle, Val. Thanks for popping in and sharing a little bit of your day with us. So, Star, first question. Let's talk about your whole journey into L&D. Love your background. You were preschool teacher. You've done a bunch
Yes.
of different stuff that's really exciting. And actually, uh, instructional design is something that it seems like it's kind of a relatively new direction for you. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I taught for 15 years. I've taught everything from preschool to high school, but I always designed my own instruction. I always worked either with homeschooling students or in private schools. So I was never given the lesson plan to teach. I always created my own. I've also supervised graduate students. And then I was furloughed in March of 2020 when COVID hit. And I thought, well, I've got this time on my hands. This seems like a good time for a pivot. And I love learning and I love teaching. So instructional design was just the perfect fit.
Oh my gosh. And it looks like you've been very successful with doing it, just because you've got your own consulting group. Is it stellardiversitytraining.com, I think, is the
Yes.
website?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I'm surprised I can remember sometimes. So folks, check that out. Stellardiversitytraining.com is where Star's website. And what was that shift like for you, going from academic into corporate training? It looks like you were already doing a lot of instructional design anyway, but
Yes.
there are a lot of folks within this community that are making that same kind of pivot. Is there anything that you can talk about that maybe made it a little easier for you, or describe sort of what your experience was like doing all of that?
I just jumped in with both feet. Read all the books I could get my hands on, joined all the groups I found, um, and yeah, watched a lot of software tutorials. So yeah, it's been fun. I get to learn about all sorts of different things and go down rabbit holes that wouldn't have been part of my job before.
Yeah, and you're a animator too, beyond animator.
Yes.
What got you
Yeah,
into
just
that? Were you somebody that was always a little bit like kind of into media like that, or was that a brand new
no, I
thing?
just as you know, I needed to learn storyline and rise and all the basics. And so Beyond came up as one of the ones on that I needed to learn, and I just loved it. I just finished a 5-unit program training middle school teachers on how to deal with it's like support students who have challenging behavior. And all 5 units, all 15 lessons were animated. So I had so much fun. I was like, "Am I getting paid to do this? I get to make cartoons. This is great."
Yeah, that's excellent. And it seems like your skills would be particularly valuable because you have that experience in academics, and all of a sudden taking on these tools like learning how to use Rise and Beyond and other things like that, being able to share them with people that are on the academic side of things. It seems like, those types of services would be in demand now.
So far, so good. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so now that you are a learning and development professional, instructional designer, what's your favorite part of this career?
It would be tied between the learning and the teaching. I'm writing a course right now about LGBTQ history and the history of views of gender around the world and major events in modern history, and it's just so fun. Like
Yeah.
I'm genuinely interested in what I'm learning. Um, yeah, so just learning the new things. Some days I might be learning about health insurance because I'm writing for that. Like it never gets boring. There's just
Mhm.
always something different.
Yeah. That's great. What are you using to build that course?
I am. I'm sorry. Say it again.
What
Which
are you
one?
using to
Which
build
course?
is it a Rise course, the LGBTQ one?
Oh, no, that's sorry, that's in Canvas.
Uh-huh.
I'm building it for a charter school
Okay.
that serves non-traditional learners. They also print out the courses for people who are incarcerated. So no, it's all on Canvas.
Wow. Wow. That's great. That's excellent. So anything that you know now that you wish you had known when you started out? It seems like you've probably just been really, really busy with learning a whole bunch of stuff. But like
Yes.
now that you've
Yeah.
been in it for a little bit, is there anything that if you could go back and tell yourself, like when you'd first started, do this first?
I've been pleasantly surprised at the e-learning development opportunities that were available while I was still learning how to transfer instructional design skills to corporate. So I think that gave me a lot of hope. Like, okay, I don't have to go, I don't have to be at 100% or even 80% to start earning a living this way. I can start small. I can start with things I'm familiar with. So that's been a nice surprise.
Wow.
that
So like what are some of those things that you started out with? Curious to hear. Like,
Just doing rise development.
yeah.
I did a couple courses for Kellogg's. I have a special ed background, and so I made a few rise courses um, as a junior instructional designer for a healthcare system in Georgia. So yeah, it was a great way to get my feet wet. I learned so much from working underneath more experienced instructional designers, and yeah, it was within my skill set. It wasn't build a complicated branching scenario in storyline on your very first job.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So you think Rise would be like a great place for like if you're an e-learning developer that's just starting out, Rise is something that
Well,
you should just take
absolutely,
on? Yeah.
absolutely, and really, Beyond's not difficult either. It's really user friendly.
Mhm. Mhm. That's great. So now, like what kind of projects are you working on? I know you just mentioned, a couple things that you were learning a great deal from, but anything else you can throw out there?
I'm working on a 12-month project for a university that wants to improve their employees' relationships with their LGBTQ students. So every month I do a 30-minute webinar, and then I do a micro learning course to help reinforce what they're learning in the webinar, to give links so they can learn more if there's things they're interested in. So it's great. It's been wonderful to have a full year to really go into depth and not be limited to that usual hour that you get.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And this, I don't know if this is even on my list, but I'm just like totally curious.
Yeah.
When we had first started chatting, you sent me a couple links to some Facebook groups that focus on DEI and I think some LGBTQ stuff. And I subscribe to them. And so I'm like reading these posts now and I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's really, really good. But I'm wondering, like, what kind of certifications did you get once you decided to start focusing on, diversity and inclusion, accessibility, those types of things? Did you like get any formal training for that?
I did earn a what is it? Diversity in the workplace. I forget the exact name. I don't maybe it's gender and sexual orientation in the workplace or something from the University of Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of it, yeah, a lot of it's just been lived experience. Been an anti-racist activist for years, so the vocabulary was already familiar to me.
Right, right. Because I had read that maybe taking one of those certification courses or one of these programs is actually good just so that you get familiar with the language and some of the
Exactly.
concepts. But it sounds like you already had that as through lived experience.
Yes, yes, it would I just needed the credentials. I needed a piece of paper that said that I knew this.
That's really fascinating. That's great. But so what are some of the challenges you're seeing as a trainer in the DEI space?
I think opening people's eyes to corners of DEI that aren't always considered. For example, disability, LGBTQ issues. I think we think DEI and we have a very specific idea of this is what people are going to learn about, and we're going to do the unconscious bias training and we're going to do the microaggression training. And that's all huge and important. And I feel like there are other groups that aren't as easy to pin out because they don't self identify for protection, self protection reasons that really need a lot more support in the workplace.
Interesting. And I was let's see, a friend of TLDC, somebody who has done a lot of broadcasts with us, Kristen Hayden Safdie. She had posted something on social media earlier today where she had written a blog post on why she thought it was important for L&D professionals to to take on or to learn more about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
And but why do you think that's important?
I think it's just a fundamental value we have as human beings to want to make things more fair. No one chooses to be part of a historically excluded group, whether it's sexual orientation, gender identity, race. Um, and it's just fundamentally unfair that people be treated differently and struggle more based on something that is out of their control. And so I just have that drive to make things easier for everyone, to help us all understand one another better, and to help people avoid unintentionally committing microaggressions.
I love it. That is, totally agree. Is there anything in particular about being an educator, especially an instructional designer, like why it might be even more critical for people as IDs to be able to have these extra this knowledge and this awareness?
I think even just knowing the right vocabulary when you write about historically excluded groups, or I have people ask questions like, "What's the right word? Am I allowed to say queer?" Like, what? Just yeah, just having the background, because it's constantly changing. We're constantly learning, and yeah, just so that when you are writing a course or learning about something new, you can use respectful language.
Right. And you actually talk a little bit about that on on your website about using respectful language. Is there anything that you can just give us a quick some tips about that at all? I'm really curious myself. Just I know even for me, this
Absolutely.
doing this whole event has been a learning experience, and I've loved every moment of it. But um, can you answer that a little bit? Like just
So some people, we used to use the terms like marginalized groups, and it kind of brings up this picture almost of the center is the white cis het male, and everyone else is on the margins as if they're not the main characters. And so what I've heard people use instead is historically excluded groups, because the people who were in power were actively excluding women, people of color, people who were not straight. And so I like that term. Um, the term queer is tricky. We don't say homosexual anymore because it used to be a medical diagnosis, like a mental health diagnosis.
hmm,
Some people in the queer community are not comfortable with it. When I advise people, like for example, police officers, I'm like, given the history between officers and the queer community, I advise you not to use the word queer because it might be taken in the wrong way. Um, so yeah, I say that's a big one. That's another tricky word.
wow. You gonna go over any of that kind of stuff on Friday at all in your session?
I wasn't planning on it. I was just going to talk to people about who's left out of our DEI discussions,
Hmm.
and talk specifically about supporting transgender employees who are transitioning, um, supporting people who are neurodiverse, people who have sensory processing disorders.
Right.
Again, I try to remember the people who get left out of the traditional conversations, even in DEI.
Oh my gosh, Star. I cannot wait. Can't wait for Friday. I'm
I'm looking
so
forward
looking
to
forward
it.
to that. I think it's gonna be great. Okay, so let's talk about now. Like you've been an instructional designer for a while. Any particular training projects that you're especially proud of that you can share with us?
Goodness. How I would say I'm working on one for mental health professionals. Um, I've done a lot of informal surveying within the transgender community, and a lot of people, when they start questioning their gender identity, or they hear from their therapist, like, oh, well, that's not my field. You're going to have to find someone else. And they lose that relationship and that trust. And so I want to empower more therapists to feel like, okay, this doesn't have to be my specialty. People don't need to seek me out specifically looking for this. But if I have a relationship with someone, I want to know the basics enough that I can support them using the tools that I have. So I'm really excited about making the training for mental health professionals, specifically to help the LGBTQ community, because there are just higher rates of mental illness within the community, higher rates of suicide, at pretty much any statistic that you look at, because of the discrimination.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. I love it. I am just I am definitely gonna have to like follow you like everywhere. I just want to like
Oh,
absorb
thank
all
you.
the
It's
stuff that you're
fun.
talking about. So, Star, who or what keeps you inspired?
I would say everyday people who are shunned by society for their gender identity, who take a risk every time they go out to the grocery store wearing a dress while having a beard. Just people who are being super brave and hanging in there, when it's constantly hard, when society either makes them invisible or invalidates their gender. To me, that is so much more work than any prize you could win. Just keeping going and being brave and being true to yourself.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally agree. I admire that so much when people's just their willingness and their need to be honest with themselves about who they are and just
Yes.
living that is that inspires me as well. Great stuff. So I think you talked about this a little bit already, but um I went to your website. You have some incredible resources. That resource page of yours, your
Thank you.
listing, it's a really big document, but there's some great stuff on there. I'm going to have to grab it and share it at some point. But in fact, I saw that you had some O'Reilly Media links to share, and that's where I actually work for my day job. But
Oh, that's what a
yeah,
coincidence.
but how do you like stay on top of your professional development altogether?
Just reading constantly. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been lucky to get um, work doing training in my field. And so, more questions come up and go down another rabbit hole, or jump into Google. And so it's just happened naturally. Um, just exploring the things that I'm teaching about. People start to see you as someone who, they could go to for DEIA, instructional design, then get hired for more of those. And it's kind of like a snowball. I end up learning more.
Mhm. So is it generally the web that you go to? Are they other specific resources? Are you kind of do you do
I
books at
use the
all or
No, I use the internet. I really like the Social Justice Handbook, Guide to Gender by Sam Killerman. That's just the best in terms of fundamentals. Love the foundational safe zone training, which is free if anyone wants to take that. But yeah, I there's just a wide variety. I just like anyone else going online, go through it with a fine tooth comb, know your sources, know who you can respect, or what else might also be on their agenda. And so
Mhm.
yeah, mostly online.
Right. Do you have a specific practice for yourself or a discipline that you allocate for professional development? Do you say have to maintain this much per week or month or anything like that?
Just try to set goals for, okay, I'd like to um improve this in my portfolio, where
Mhm.
I don't have a strict rule about every week or every month. It's more like, what do the next couple weeks look like for me? Okay, when
Mhm.
I finish the paid work, this is an area where I can improve.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I
Nice.
had when I first started instructional design, I had a fun accountability group, and it was great. We met every single Saturday, and we're like, what did you do from last week? What are you going to do this coming week? And that helped enormously.
Yeah, an accountability group. I love that.
Yes.
as a musician, I try to find groups like that. I'm not in one right now, but when I was a songwriter, I formed a group with some other songwriters, and it was definitely the most productive period of my songwriting career. It was just, because every time we'd have to meet, we would have to have new material. And so it's like,
We need deadlines
yeah.
as human beings. A lot, myself included, definitely need deadlines, and to have to, we don't want to go in front of other people and say, "Oh, I didn't do what I said I was going to do." So having that deadline of, yes, this is going to be done by then, people are going to hold me accountable.
Mhm.
Just, yeah, invaluable.
Wow. All right, Star. So what other kinds of jobs have you worked?
Let's see. The most interesting one so far was for a rave. They wanted training on sexual harassment, on supporting people with possible drug overdoses, as well as the usual things I do in terms of just awareness around gender identity and sexual orientation. So that, yeah, that was eye opening. I was given hundreds of pages of journal articles on rave culture. I didn't even know that there were journals about electronic dance music. But there you go.
Wow, that's wild. So, I mean, was it like a one-time event, or was it a company or a group that produced
it's
like a
a com-
series, or?
it's a company that organizes raves in the Netherlands.
Uh-huh.
They're based in New York City, and they wanted to do a thorough training for their employees. They organize these 3-day events. So, new batch of employees for each event.
Wow, that is really, really cool. Um, Maybe you'll even get to go to one of them. That'd be pretty
That would be
interesting to see.
interesting. That would be a different experience. Can't say I've ever experienced anything like that.
Right, right. So, Star, if you weren't an L&D professional or an educator right now, what do you think you'd be?
Oh, not even an educator, my goodness. I mean, if time were no option, I'd probably just be handing out food at the food bank.
Yeah.
I just want I Whenever I have the opportunity to help people in concrete ways, I want to do that. And just been lucky to find a field where I feel like I can help people in concrete ways and still pay my bills. So yeah,
Ah,
I would just be I would honestly probably be volunteering in food banks and in preschools. I feel
yeah.
like there's a really big need in both of those places.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, Star. It's wonderful to hear. If there's one thing that people should know about you, what is it?
Goodness. Um I guess just that my personal experiences as someone who's non-binary and pansexual really inform a lot of my work. I make a point to get a lot of feedback from as many people as possible, and a lot of times the original ideas about even what questions to ask them are based on my own experiences.
Wow. Is it okay if I post like your LinkedIn
Go for
URL
it.
into the chat so
Yeah,
that people
I
can
love to
connect with you?
make new connections on LinkedIn.
I love it. Okay. So there it is. I posted Star's LinkedIn profile there in the chat, everybody. So connect with Star if you'd like. And um Friday is going to be fantastic. I can't wait to have you
Can't
there.
wait to
Thank you
see.
so much for filling in, because I actually haven't mentioned this really to anyone, but we did have a cancellation, and you graciously were able to help fill that spot, and I really, really appreciate that. So yeah, and I think it's just it's going to be a good thing. Yeah. Total rock
I'm
star.
I'm always grateful for the ability for the chance to talk with like-minded people, and so we can all geek out about our shared interests, and again to try to shine a light on communities that I feel like are often overlooked in the
Mhm.
DEIA community. So
Yeah.
I'll talk to anyone who will listen. You just gave me a platform to talk about what I want to talk about, so thank you.
No, that's great. I'm sure that we're going to be talking again, because I know a lot of my own interests have really started to 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 sort of channel in this direction. Just as a person of color and somebody that is a community builder, I'm really having to ask myself a lot of questions that I never really thought I'd be asking myself before. And so um and it's kind of empowering for me to, to sort of come to be more honest with about certain things. And
Yes.
and so Yeah, I'm really feeling good about this event coming up, and I can't absorb enough information about DEI at this point. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you and learning more from you, and we'll see you on Friday.
I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for jumping in today, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully, see you on Friday. If you haven't already registered,
Yes.
yes, ideaforlearning.com. You can find the website. It's free registration. Get as many people as you can to show up for this one. I think that we're the gateway. Like L&D really is kind of the gateway for a lot of folks to be, to pass on this kind of knowledge, and so this one's important for us and for this community.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Star. Bye bye.